first game in the Condemned series was a pretty interesting horror title. The premise of being chased across town by vicious psychopathic lunatics, as well as the police department who think you killed your fellow officers, made for a very interesting story, but the gameplay lacked polish, using a fairly clunky combat system and control scheme. However, that game was an extremely early 360 title, and the developers had a few more years under their belt to work on the sequel, and you can definitely tell. This is Condemned 2 Bloodshot for the Xbox 360.
That's me, Ethan Thomas. Drunk, tired, and pissed off.
Condemned 2 Bloodshot still follows Ethan Thomas, the police officer turned homicide suspect from the first game. However, kind of like Max Payne, Ethan has turned to drinking his problems away and has completely destroyed his life, but the problems that began in the first game are still in full effect. Ethan gets pulled back into the conflict as he sees an extremely sick-looking Malcolm Van Horn, who is the man responsible for letting Ethan escape from his apartment at the beginning of Criminal Origins. The story feels much more organic in the sequel, and it has a much better flow as well. The events feel genuinely scary, and although some of the characters could have been a little better developed, it's a big step up from the first game where you just feel kind of thrown into the situation with no backstory. The biggest improvement from Criminal Origins and Bloodshot is the combat system. I complained in my review of the game that the combat feels very sluggish and stiff, but these problems have been fixed in Condemned 2. Using a combo system and a few finishing moves, fighting enemies now has a much smoother feel to it. For example, if an enemy tries to hit you with a big swing, you can parry him and then quickly unleash a left-right combo to knock him to the ground, where you can then finish him off. Guns also still have the feeling of empowerment since you don't get them that often, and some of the enemies actually make you get worried when they show up. A few situations actually had me jump in my seat. Now, although there are parts of the game that use the environment and atmosphere to create a creepy scenario, Condemned 2 also uses the jumping out at you technique that I can't stand. It gets pretty old to know that if you walk into an empty room and then turn around to leave, an enemy is going to be waiting for you. Some of the scripted events are also way too obvious. The game does use lighting to its advantage though, giving you a chance to spot creatures with flashlights before entering areas without making it too easy to do so. The good level design also contributes to this working so well. Condemned 2 also takes a big step up from its predecessor in the visual department. Everything looks much better, but faces and mouths look especially improved from Criminal Origins. Voice acting is still not all that great, especially with supporting characters, but the terrific sound design makes up for this, using little noises to give you the creeps while you work your way through an area. Condemned 2 Bloodshot is a step up in every way from the original game, and although you probably won't like it if you didn't like the first one, horror fans should still definitely check it out.